Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, your highnesses, your majesties, for this opportunity. I think it's a wonderful platform to speak about children's rights, because I do believe that this agenda has never been so important for human rights, for human dignity, for social justice, for social inclusion, and particularly when we at the United Nations have adopted the Global Sustainable Development Agenda 2030. And it will not come as a surprise, being a Director General of the United Nations Organization for Education, Culture and Sciences. But let me speak about education, because I do believe that the beginning of this wonderful journey of implementing the 2030 Agenda should start on the benches of schools. Since 2000, when we had the Millennium Development Goals, we have seen an enormous progress in education of children, particularly in the primary education. But we know, because UNESCO publishes every year our global monitoring reports on education, we know that still 59 million children remain out of primary school today. And as Winnie just made a very powerful advocacy for girls, let me also add that out of these 59 million children, 32 million girls, so the majority of the children are girls that stay out of primary school. And the number of adolescent girls in secondary school are even higher. Only 60% of countries globally have achieved parity in primary education among boys and girls, and only 38 have achieved parity in secondary education. And we know also that the world's poorest children carry the heaviest burden. Our last year's global monitoring report showed that if we have the same pace of progress, the poor girls in the poorest rural communities in sub-Saharan Africa will get into school in 2086. So it means 70 years from today. And I don't believe it is an option for us. And we have to accelerate this movement. And the situation is much worse, of course, in conflict situations, in refugee camps, in displaced, internally displaced children. They're particularly marginalized and included, and my dear colleague and friend, the High Commissioner Zaid, also spoke about that. And we do believe that in many of these cases, it is a humanitarian issue. It is also a developmental multiplier, as we say, but it also becomes a security imperative. Because with the youth radicalization, unfortunately, in many parts of the world, we see the rise of violent extremism. And also because we know the power of education. If all girls had secondary education, there would be 64% fewer early marriages and 59% fewer early pregnancies. If all children left school with basic skills, 170 million could be lifted out of poverty. Each additional year of schooling is associated with 35% higher GDP per capita. It is a huge, I believe, developmental multiplier, and there is simply nothing like education as a transformational force. So I believe the Sustainable Development Goal number 4, to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education for all and promote lifelong learning opportunities, is a new call for inclusive societies. But we need also to put an emphasis on learning environments, enabling learning environments. We need to have child-friendly schools. We have to work with parents, with communities. And I believe we have to counter discrimination as early as possible. It has to go beyond the educators, beyond the ministries of educators. We need all of you. We need the civil society. We need the private sector apart from governments. And we need to focus where we think the weakest points in all this effort. That is where we think that empowering adolescent girls and young women can be one such transformational force. And just to give examples, because I believe many of the private sector companies who are here can play a hugely important role. And we at UNESCO, we see partnerships with the private sector not just a source of financing. It is an important, of course, source of financing for all the Sustainable Development Agenda 2030, and it is right to be this way. But we see also a lot of source of innovation, of new ideas, creating open platforms, using new technologies, using innovation, investing in skills for young people. This is where I believe the private sector can make a huge difference. And just a few examples, because I think this forum, the Global Child Forum, is also about good practices, about sharing experiences. I'm very happy to see here also Mr. Kim, the Vice President for Global Affairs of Samsung, a wonderful partner, Samsung Electronics, also of UNESCO, where we work to create smart school facilities. We work also for education for sustainable development, to integrate disaster risk in our formal schooling, integrate it into teacher training. We have also a partnership with Procter & Gamble to mobilize educators for adolescent girls in Africa, to get girls and keep them in schools. We have also a wonderful partnership with Ericsson, with the United Kingdom Department for International Development, working in Myanmar for new technologies, expand access into internet, and many, many other examples. I think this is just but a few. What I believe, and we can do here through this forum, is to scale up all these wonderful initiatives. We have to build on them, integrate them into a wider development effort. So I think businesses are joining forces through United Nations Global Compact, through Business Back Education campaign that is led also, co-led by UNESCO, by Varkey James Foundation, the Global Business Coalition that we have established with the Special Envoy for Education, Mr. Gordon Brown. And I believe all of these initiatives that we can share here through you could scale up and could give good opportunities to make the most of innovation with the private sector for an essential public good. And let me just add, ladies and gentlemen, with the words I recall of a great campaigner for children's rights, the Nobel Peace Prize, Kailash Satyarthi. When he received the Nobel Peace Prize, he said, "It is time for every child to have the right to life, the right to freedom, the right to health, the right to education, the right to safety, the right to dignity, the right to equality, and the right to peace." I think, Your Majesties, this is also your aim, and this is the aim of this global forum, because we are all responsible for the future of our children. And at the end, I think when we speak about the future of our children, we speak about what kind of societies we want to live in, what kind of world we want to see in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bokova.